Nneka Ogwumike's change of course caught everyone off guard. Just months ago, the players' union appeared ready for a fight, criticizing the league compensation and threatening a strike. But something shifted fast, with Caitlin Clark elevating the league's visibility and revenue like never before. That aggressive posture suddenly looked reckless. Clark's influence turned the WNBA into a hot property, opening the door to quadrupled salaries and long-term stability.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
Facing the possibility of dismantling this progress, union leadership is now scrambling to strike a deal instead of protest. This reversal highlights a pivotal moment in women's sports. Clark's impact made real money possible, but only if the league holds together. A strike now would erase hard-won gains, alienate sponsors, and send fans packing. The opportunity is here, but it's fragile. Leadership today means recognizing the risk of overplaying your hand. If this moment slips, it may never come back. Caitlin Clark never joined the players' union, not during her Iowa days, after she became the single biggest driver of attention, ratings, and revenue in the WNBA's history. That choice raised eyebrows. But what's wild now? The union that once stood distant from her is circling back, hard. Not with critiques, with pleas. It's a complete turnaround. Just months ago, the union was posturing for a strike. They were ramping up, firing off public demands, and warning of a possible 2026 standoff with league management. Back then, their energy screamed defiance. But now, Union President Nneka Ogwumike is singing a very different tune. And it's not subtle. The message has shifted from "we're ready to walk" to "we have to get a deal done fast." The reason for this pivot? One name, Caitlin Clark. Clark didn't just bring in attention. She brought in cash. Real, trackable, explosive revenue. Suddenly, the WNBA is seeing packed stadiums, record-breaking viewership, and corporate sponsors eager to sign checks. It's a financial rebirth, and it wasn't gradual. It was a flip-the-switch moment that coincided with Clark's debut. That shift in money changed everything. For the first time in the WNBA's existence, profitability is on the table. Not as a goal, as a current reality. And that reality comes with leverage, but not for the players' union. For the league. And that's why Nneka's tone has changed. She sees what's its. The early rhetoric from the union was built on decades of struggle. Fair pay, respect, equity. All real issues. But now, there's a window to actually achieve it. Salaries could be quadrupled. Conditions improved. Travel upgraded. And it's not a hypothetical. It's in the current negotiation proposals. The progress players dreamed of is right there, ready to be signed. Yet, here's the twist. Striking now would destroy it. Every ounce of goodwill, every dollar of corporate investment, every fan gained over the past year, it could all evaporate. That's the stakes. This isn't 2015. The WNBA finally has leverage, but only if they don't fumble it. And let's be honest, threatening a strike at this moment isn't strategy. It's sabotage. It would look like the league's biggest season ever just got derailed because the union refused to read the room. Fans don't rally behind work stoppages. Sponsors don't write checks to uncertainty. And networks don't fight for media rights to games that aren't happening. It's not just bad optics. It's a torpedo to everything the league has built in the past year, including Caitlin Clark's momentum, which, by the way, isn't unlimited. The WNBA finally has the world's attention, but that attention can shift fast. The history of the WNBA is filled with seasons where no one was watching. Games were played in half-empty gyms, with players flying commercial, juggling second jobs, and fighting just to get headlines. Respect was earned, but it didn't come with dollars. Until now, Caitlin Clark changed that. She brought a different kind of spotlight, one that didn't just boost awareness, it brought in real money. The kind of money that made ESPN rework schedules, made brands run campaigns, and made arenas sell out months in advance. She didn't ask the union for permission. She just delivered results. Now, the union has to grapple with a hard truth. Clark is the reason they have any leverage at all, and they can't afford to alienate her, or let this moment slip. Because the cold business side of sports doesn't care about history. It cares about momentum. And right now, momentum is on their side, but it's fragile. Nneka's shift in tone is the clearest sign that reality has hit. Her new messaging focuses on the need to protect the 2026 season, to reach an agreement that ensures stability. That's a massive pivot from where things were. It's not just about bargaining now. It's about survival. Before Clark, no one was using the words profitable and WNBA in the same sentence. But now it's undeniable. This league, once operating at a loss year after year, is suddenly worth something. A lot, actually. The media rights, the ticket sales, the merchandise, it's all booming. And let's not get it twisted. This isn't about just one player. But Clark was the catalyst. Her presence changed the perception of what women's basketball could be. She didn't just raise the bar. She built a new one. And the money followed. That's why the strike talk feels so off-key. There's a negotiation happening right now that includes life-changing increases in salary and benefits. And for once, ownership has the financial incentive to actually say yes. But that willingness has an expiration date. If the union plays hardball for too long, the whole deal could collapse. And fans won't blame the league. They'll blame the players, the ones they just started supporting in massive numbers. It's the worst possible time to ask casual fans to choose sides. They won't. They'll just move on. And the WNBA can't afford it. It's wild how fast things flipped. For years, the union's arguments centered around visibility and respect. Now, they're standing in front of actual revenue, with numbers to prove their value. But the mindset hasn't shifted fast enough. Some are still fighting yesterday's war, even though the battlefield has completely changed. Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, and other vets paved the way. But this era belongs to players like Clark. And with that comes new responsibility. Union leadership needs to meet the moment, not with slogans, but with strategy. The irony is brutal. The very progress the union fought for is finally within reach, and they're the ones who could jeopardize it. Not the league, not ownership, them. By refusing to close the deal, they risk unraveling the very momentum that made the deal possible in the first place. Leadership isn't just about fighting. It's about knowing when to move, when to lock in gains and protect the win. This is that moment. Because if they strike now, it's not just this season at risk. It's the league's. There's a reason everyone's watching this situation like it's Game 7. The stakes have never been higher, and the cracks are starting to show. Caitlin Clark has taken hit after hit, sometimes literally from opponents, media, and online mobs. And now she's being asked to step up for the very system she refused to formally join. But here's the twist. She might be the only person who can save it. Not because she owes anyone anything, but because her value is no longer just symbolic. It's financial. And in professional sports, money talks louder than ideology. A few years ago, fans were just dreaming about matchups like Clark versus Buchers. Now, they're headline events pulling Super Bowl-like numbers by WNBA standards, anyway. The landscape has shifted that fast, but what hasn't changed fast enough is the union strategy. They're still approaching negotiations like they have all the leverage. They don't. Not anymore. Not when there's a literal superstar pulling the league out of the red and into a revenue-positive future. And not when networks and sponsors are finally writing big checks. It's ironic. The thing the union fought hardest for, economic legitimacy, is finally here. But instead of adapting to it, some are stuck in a mode of confrontation. When what's needed now is clarity. If Clark, the league, and management are aligned, the union needs to meet them halfway. Not stall the train that's already at full speed. Every game Clark plays is not just another shot clock. It's another market opportunity, another sold-out arena, another young girl in a fever jersey, believing there's a future in this sport. All of that could vanish if this negotiation turns into... Even some of the vets who've shaped this league are starting to shift. Diana Taurasi may not have always been a Clark cheerleader, but she knows when the money's real. Respect in the locker room is one thing, but market value is another. And Clark has that in excess, which is why even behind the scenes, more players are starting to get it. This isn't just about principle anymore. It's about securing a sustainable future for the next generation. And that means getting a deal done before this rare window slams shut. Look at Clark in pressers these days. You can see the shift in her eyes. She knows the pressure she's under, not just to perform, but to carry an entire league forward while barely out of college. That's not fair, but it's real. And now, she's being indirectly asked to bridge a gap between a union she never joined and a league that depends on her existence. If that's not high-stakes leadership, what is the irony? Even the players who could be seen as rivals, like Aya Wilson, are benefiting from the Clark effect. More eyes on the game means more endorsement deals, more spotlight, more growth for everyone. But it only works if the machine keeps running. A strike would hit pause on all of it. And in an age of short attention spans and 100 other sports options, hitting pause is the same as hitting delete. Once momentum dies, it's near impossible to revive. Think about how far the league has come. We've got Clark making crossover appearances in golf tournaments, bringing cameras with her everywhere. That's not just visibility. That's branding. That's a league finally breaking into mainstream culture. And now, we're risking all of it for what? A hardline negotiation tactic that doesn't account for how fragile this new ecosystem really is? That's not strategy. That's self-destruction. Clark and players like Sophie Cunningham are doing more for the league's image than any corporate campaign ever could. They're making women's basketball feel current. Cool. Worth watching. That's a gold mine. But the minute this progress is interrupted by strikes, by shutdowns, by bad headlines, it won't be Clark and Cunningham who get blamed. It'll be the entire WNBA. And that's a burden the union has to think very carefully about before pulling any triggers. Look at how Clark's reach extends into other sports, other audiences. Her playing alongside Nelly Corda wasn't just a fun golf moment. It was a brand synergy explosion. That's what happens when someone becomes a cultural figure, not just an athlete. The union needs to recognize that Caitlin Clark isn't just a star player. She's an engine, a multiplier, and you don't throw sand into your own engine just because you don't like how fast it's going. Every match Clark plays feels like a checkpoint for the league. Another test, another opportunity. And so far, she keeps passing. But if this strike talk escalates, those checkpoints could stop coming. And once that happens, it doesn't matter how good she is or how much she's changed the league. The momentum will die, and the league might never get it back. That's the danger. That's why this moment demands maturity, not muscle flexing. Clark doesn't speak often on union drama, but when she does, it's measured, calm. She knows her words carry weight now, and she's not trying to throw gasoline on the fire. That's what makes it all the more powerful when she does speak up about the league's growth, the need for unity, and, most tellingly, the importance of keeping the game going. She's not out here playing politics. She's out here keeping the lights on. And you can bet league execs know it. Sponsors know it. Even a union knows it. That's why the whispers around these negotiations keep circling back to the same name. It's not just about what Caitlin Clark does on the court. It's about what she makes possible off it. Take a look at her peers. Players like Lexi Hull are finally getting their names called on national broadcasts, selling jerseys, building a fan base. That ripple effect comes straight from the epicenter that is Clark. This isn't the same league it was 5 years ago, and it's not even the same league it was last season. So when the union continues bargaining as if it's still 2019, they're not just being cautious, they're being reckless. They're gambling with a rare, maybe once-in-a-generation moment. And it's not just Clark's future on the line, it's the whole league's. You see the proof every time Caitlin and Paige are mentioned in the same breath. Fans light up, media goes into overdrive. College rivalries spill into pro headlines. That's revenue. That's storylines. That's what leagues dream about. And right now, the WNBA has it in real time. A strike doesn't just delay that kind of momentum. It poisons it. Viewers aren't going to stick around for drama they didn't sign up for. They just started caring. You think they'll sit through labor disputes like it's baseball? Not it. Clark's already carrying enough weight. She's been fouled harder than most rookies, baited by vets, and tossed around in a league adjusting to her spotlight. But despite it all, she keeps showing up, keeps playing, keeps moving the needle. And now, because of all that consistency, she's become the thing the WNBA hasn't had in decades, a cultural constant. If the league fumbles this opportunity because of union missteps, the fallout will be massive. No highlight reel can fix a broken business model. Players like Sophie Cunningham have embraced this new wave with open arms. They know what Clark brings, not just visibility, but legitimacy. Cunningham didn't need to change who she was. She just needed the spotlight. And now, thanks to Clark, she has it. This kind of synergy only works when the machine stays running. The minute labor talks freeze the season, that chemistry vanishes. It's like watching a band break up mid-tour. Fans check out, and the magic never quite comes back. Clark in press conferences is a masterclass in composure. Even when poked about controversy or baited into picking sides, she holds the line. She stays focused on the game. That professionalism is part of why she's become the league's MVP in more ways than one. So when you realize that the most impactful figure in the league isn't in the union, isn't taking sides, and isn't demanding anything, it makes you question why the people with seats at the table are still treating this moment like a battleground instead of breakthrough. There's a quiet tension under all of this, a sense that the league has finally reached the mountaintop and could fall off at any moment. Clark might not show it, but even she seems to carry that pressure, not just to perform, but to preserve something bigger than herself. The sadness comes from the fact that players have waited so long for this kind of opportunity, and now, when it's here, there's a risk it could be squandered by poor timing and old tactics. That's not just frustrating, it's tragic. Look at her game. The three-point bombs, the logo-range daggers, the smooth transition play. These are the plays filling seats and clips. They're more than highlight moments. They're economic events. Every shot she takes is a reminder of what the league stands to lose. And every time a strike looms larger, that reminder gets more bitter. The players worked too hard, and Clark rose too fast for it all to grind to a halt over. Even Diana Taurasi, who once shaded Clark with classic veteran skepticism, can't deny the shift anymore. Her own words may have cooled, because she sees what's happening. This league is entering a new era, and Clark's the bridge from old guard to new empire. But empires don't survive civil wars. If the union can't pivot from confrontation to collaboration, it'll be known as the group that blew the bag, at the exact moment history turned in their favor. Meanwhile, Aya Wilson's thriving under this new spotlight. Her battles with Clark have been electric, but more importantly, profitable. This isn't a one-woman league. It's a league lifted by one woman's momentum and sustained by everyone smart enough to ride the wave. The league, the execs, the networks, they all see the roadmap. What's unclear is whether the union does. Because if they don't get in line with this moment, they won't just lose a bargaining chip. They'll lose the entire. Sue Bird has seen it all, from packed Olympic arenas to quiet WNBA locker rooms with barely enough reporters to fill a minivan. She helped build the league brick by brick, and she knows better than anyone what a golden window looks like. That's probably why she's keeping quiet on strike talk. She's not throwing punches. She's watching. Because when you've watched this league crawl for 2 decades, and now it's finally sprinting, you don't cheer for it to trip. You guide it, quietly. And if younger players are smart, they'll take the cue. Clark, for her part, doesn't seem interested in power plays. Her message, when she's asked about the business side, is consistent: gratitude, opportunity, and staying focused on the game. That kind of clarity is rare in a moment this volatile. But maybe that's the whole point. Leadership doesn't always mean sitting at the negotiating table. Sometimes it means showing up, game after game, dragging a franchise and a league into profitability by sheer force of star power. And Clark is doing just that without making it about her. Sophie Cunningham, like a lot of players, has learned how to ride the wave instead of trying to control it. She's capitalizing on the visibility, leaning into the moment, and letting Clark's spotlight spread to everyone else. That's how a rising tide lifts all boats. But rising tides don't wait. They either carry you or drown you. If the union keeps trying to out-leverage the league during the biggest growth period in its history, they're going to miss the boat completely and take the whole dock with them. You can see the weight on Clark's face when the cameras get too close after a tough game. She's not just playing basketball anymore. She's holding a league on her shoulders while people twice her age debate how to handle her impact. And the wildest part? She never asked for this. She just played, broke records, sold tickets, changed the math. And now, she's become the pivot point in a billion-dollar conversation she wasn't even supposed to be part of. That's not just pressure. That's C, whose legacy is secure, could easily dismiss the Clark effect as hype. But she hasn't, not recently. Because even she can see what's happening. The numbers are undeniable. The media frenzy is real. The fans aren't just watching, they're invested. And that's what makes the union's next move so important. This isn't just about protecting rights or increasing benefits. It's about securing a future that finally looks sustainable. If they're not careful, they'll win the argument and lose the entire. Aya Wilson is proof that stardom isn't a zero-sum game. She's still dominating on court, still thriving in the spotlight, and still benefiting from the Clark wave. These players don't have to compete for relevance. They're sharing it. That's what the league finally got right. But what the union risks getting wrong. It's not about choosing between pushing harder or backing down. It's about knowing when the deal in front of you is actually the one you've been fighting for. There's something heavy in the air right now, a sense that the moment is big but fragile. And Clark, who never joined the union and never threw her weight around in negotiations, is somehow the center of it all. Because even without raising her voice, she changed everything. Now, the question is whether the people who claim to speak for the players can recognize that. Can they read the room, take the win, and build something lasting? Or will they strike out in a season that could have rewritten the story of women's basketball forever? You already know where we stand. If you're watching this because you care about the future of the WNBA, because you've seen what Caitlin Clark is doing and believe the game is finally getting the respect it deserves, then don't just scroll past. Share this. Drop your thoughts in the comments. And hit that subscribe button so we can keep covering this story as it unfolds. There's never been a more important time to stay tuned.